Hi, I'm continuing my review of the Song and Ice and Fire trilogy with A Storm of Swords. There will be spoilers, so just to let you know. So this book is by and large considered the best book of the series so far. I definitely agree. It packs so much information into its pages, and it's about 1,200 pages long. And it has a couple of big major events that happen in the story and a lot of setup, which is continued through the fourth and the fifth book. So we start with a lot of the fallout from Stannis's failed attack on King's Landing and what they're doing about it. And there's also the fallout from, well, not the fallout, but I guess the events of Arya and Gendry and Hot Pie escaping from Harrenhal and trying to be on their own. And then also in King's Landing, Tyrion being deposed, or, not really deposed, because he never really was the Hand of the King. He was just acting as the Hand of the King, but his father's back. And so now he's just kind of being shoved to the side, and it's like, we don't really care about you anymore. Nobody seems to care or even know really what he did to save the city. Everybody thinks he's terrible, and so he's having a terrible time of it. Tyrion gets crapped on a lot in this book, but it makes him better. I mean, it's a big trial for this guy. He just keeps taking the punches, and eventually he can't take it anymore, and it's really awesome when you get to that point. But yeah, so Tyrion goes through a lot. A lot of the characters do in this. There are a couple of major events. The Red Wedding and the Purple Wedding both happen in this book. I'm not going to spoil those. Those happen near after the first half of the book. They happen within about 100 pages of each other. So two completely game-changing events happen within 100 pages of each other in this book, and it's crazy. And then beyond what's happening in King's Landing, you have a lot of stuff going on beyond the wall. The Night's Watch has been, the 200 people who went beyond the wall for the ranging, they are not having a good time of it. And Jon has now been sort of assimilated into the wildlings, and he's having to learn how to deal with that because he's taken some vows. He's not allowed to be with a woman or have a family or anything like that, and a lot of those values are being tested because the wildlings are completely different people. I mean, they're completely different even from, people he's used to, because they have a much different set of values than people south of the wall. So that's very interesting, and Jon's always been a favorite character of mine, and I think really the third book really highlights why he's such a good character. And so he goes through a lot of crap too, and it's awesome. Your favorite characters are the ones who have to go through so much crap, but they wind up being better for it, or at least more interesting for it. So he goes through lots of crap. Arya goes through lots of crap. Tyrion goes through lots of crap. Poor characters, but I love them. And hopefully George R.R. Martin is good to them later. Ugh. But anyway, so then we get Daenerys, who's, again, across the sea, doesn't have any contact with any of the other characters really in the book, and she has to get an army. She doesn't have an army right now. She has about 100 of her Khalasar left, and not that many people are taking her that seriously. Yeah, she has dragons, but they're thinking, well, your dragons are so small they can't destroy our cities right now, and unless you're going to give us one of them, you're pretty much worthless to us. So it's just to figure out how she's going to get an army. And then she goes on this kind of a self-righteous crusade, I guess, to free the slaves in Slaver's Bay, and it doesn't necessarily go the way she plans it all the time, and it's a good lesson, I think, for her to grow up, but I think she is a little too overconfident. As before in the first and the second book, she was getting her footing as a Khaleesi and as a queen. You know, she was very timid, and now I think she's overconfident and overdoing her, overstating, I guess, her abilities as a queen. She realizes that she has a lot to learn, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Daenerys, she's been a good character of mine. She's not a favorite character of mine. I enjoy her chapters, at least up until the third book. After that, and I'll get to those when I review the fifth book, because she's not in the fourth one. She has some issues. Now, and we also get to see, I guess, like the final couple characters. We see Catelyn, chapter from her point of view, and she's mostly with Robb, and he's kind of screwed up a major thing, and he's having to deal with that throughout the entire book. So that's a major thing that happens throughout this book. And Catelyn, if you remember from the second one, she released the Kingslayer, Jaime Lannister, so that he could be traded for her daughters in King's Landing. And Robb's men are not happy about it, but Robb has done something that is a little bit worse almost. And you know, Catelyn thinks she should be punished and everything, but Robb's not really doing anything because he feels bad enough about what he's done. And that's you want to smack Robb. He's only like 16, so obviously he's gonna make mistakes, but you want to smack him sometimes. Yeah. And then we also get a couple of new people in this book. We get Jaime. Jaime has point of view chapters, and Samwell has a couple of new has point of view chapters. And Sam's mostly serve to demonstrate the things that are going on away from the wildlings, because Jon's with the wildlings, so his point of view chapters happen with the wildlings, and so you need somebody who is in the Night's Watch and knows a bit more about what's going on. And so his chapters kind of serve to do that, but also serve to show a little bit more of the mystical side of things, of the different creatures that are beyond the wall. And those are interesting, and you don't really get too much more insight into his character, because Sam's a fairly simple character. He's a good character. I don't mind reading about him. He doesn't bug me like Bran's chapters. Bran still has chapters in this book, and I could care less because Bran is annoying. So again, good information, but oh my god, so annoying. Ugh. So, but then we get Jaime's chapters, which are fascinating, because you kind of hate Jaime through the first and the second book, because he's the Kingslayer. You know, he slew his king. He was sworn to protect his king, and he's a butthead, and you know, you just don't like him. And then you read his chapters, and you start to realize there's a lot more to him than just his name of the Kingslayer. And that, I love that. You know, he's had this whole reputation built up around him by other people, when in fact he's actually a fairly honorable guy. You know, he's not a paragon of any sort, but he's a fairly honorable guy. So you really start to like that. The other thing, I guess, well, there's lots of things in this book. There aren't any point of view chapters for these characters, but you get some insight into Dorne, which is the southernmost part of the country. And Dorne is very fascinating. It's kind of like the Middle East more compared to the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, which is more like Europe. And it's a very interesting sort of dichotomy between the two worlds. Dorne allows women to inherit the throne before the men. If like say the daughter was born first, she'd be the heir. You know, she was born first, she gets to be the heir. There's no problem with that. And Dorne has a much more relaxed way of looking at things, but they don't forget. You get Oberyn Martell coming into town for certain events that go on, and his sister Elia was married to Rhaegar Targaryen, which is Daenerys' older brother, who was killed by Robert Baratheon in Robert Baratheon's war. So, yeah, Ellie was killed, and Oberyn is not happy about it. There are so many different aspects to what's going on, especially in King's Landing. King's Landing has many different threads going on in it that all culminate in different events. And everywhere else, the different characters, there are different events that are going to be affecting a lot of what's going to be coming. So one thing I definitely want to mention, and definitely tell you guys to look out for when you're rereading this book, or reading this book for the first time if you haven't read it yet. Like I said in my previous review for Clash of Kings, you know, paying attention to the scene where Dany goes to the House of the Undying, where there's some foreshadowing. In this book, it isn't foreshadowing so much as explaining events in the past that are we wouldn't know necessarily. Now, so in one of Bran's chapters, the only interesting Bran chapter that I found in this book, Mira Reed is telling Bran a story. And Mira's brother is asking, like, oh, are you sure your dad hasn't told you this? Which gives you the hint, like, okay, well, I guess he should know the story. And when you start to read the story, you realize that it's super important. It's about the tournament where Rhaegar pronounced Lyanna Stark as the Queen of Love and Beauty, despite the fact that he has a wife. And you don't know this necessarily. It doesn't spell it out necessarily in the story specifically, but there are enough clues that you can gather. You know, you can figure that out. First time I read it, didn't totally. It went over my head. I totally didn't know what was going on. When you reread it, it gives you a lot more information and insight into what's going on. And so that is very fascinating. He does a good job of subtly foreshadowing events or giving you history. So this book is by far my favorite of the series so far. And I'll explain about the 4th and the 5th book when I get to them. And they're still good books. I'll still read them. But definitely, while this book covers seasons 3 and some of season 4 in Game of Thrones, the series, there's still way more information in this that you are just not going to get in the show. And, oh my gosh. Now, of course, reading this is not going to ruin the show for you. This last episode, episode 6 of season 4, there's a big scene, a big speech that goes on, and I had just read that maybe a day before watching the episode, and it didn't ruin the experience for me at all, because they're doing such a good job on the show, and it's such a powerful scene. So yeah, read these. You have to at least read like 2 and beyond, because you're not going to get all the information, the whole story from the series. As good as it is, you're not going to get the whole story. So definitely read this, and I will be doing my review of A Feast for Crows whenever I finish it, which might be a little while. But yeah, hope this was helpful, and I'll see you later. Bye.